It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. This is another edition of Frontline Friday. I am joined, as always, by my regular and special guest, Bridget Gleason. Bridget, how are you today?
Andy, today's a great day.
Today's
All
a
good.
great
How are
day
you?
to be alive.
Today's a great day. Yes, that's right. Today's a great day.
So,
as always, I'm lucky in that I typically wake up happy and go to bed happy. So today was no different.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm I have to admit, I'm jet lagging still a little bit, just returned from a little bit of a vacation, quasi-vacation as mine usually are. But yeah, still trying to adjust to a 6-hour time difference. And so I was up late last night. Either that or I was still disheartened.
Makes it a slow start for the morning.
Yeah. So anyway, gosh, a couple really interesting things I want to talk about here today, and it's here's my problem is we're living in this really exciting age with regard to sales. We've got this influx of technologies, sales enablement technologies, tools, things to make selling easier, perhaps more efficient, more effective. But as I was thinking about recently, and I was reading reports about sales productivity and sales performance and so on from industry standard sources like CSO Insights and others, that what struck me is that while on one hand, everything is changing, on the other hand, nothing is changing. So I mean on the top, we've got all these great technologies and so on, but according to the reports, over half of our sales reps still don't make quota. In fact, I think that number is going up slightly, but it hasn't changed markedly in a really, really long time. Multiple reports saying that from anywhere 50 to 60% of qualified opportunities in pipelines end up in no decision, what I call the no decision, which again, gosh, that's a huge number, but it's not changing, right? Nothing we're doing is changing that. Conversion rates, close rates. We've got this whole influx of inside sales and their SaaS business, and people seem to be happy. They have close rates in 20 to 23%, whereas to me that's unsustainably low. You can't build industries based on that. Yeah, there are some superstars that will come out, but by and large, for most of the companies, it just doesn't work. So, it's this conundrum, trying to deal with this and think about where's the real revolution in sales going to come from? Not just changing the window dressing as we're doing with technology, but, fundamentally how we engage with prospects and improve the real productivity of the individual. And I talk about productivity as, the rate of output based on a unit of input. So, how we get more sales revenue for, each hour we spend selling. And that seems to be the real missing ingredient. And so I wanted to spend some time talking about that, get your take on it.
Well, here's something as you're talking about this, Andy, that I wonder is, we haven't seen quota attainment go up. We haven't seen conversion rates go up. We haven't seen, the different statistics that you mentioned. The no decided has stayed the same. And so it does beg the question, has technology done anything? We've got all these sales acceleration tools and helping us be more productive. And yet here's what I wonder is, I do think that these technologies have helped. And here's going to be sort of my hypothesis, and I'd like to get your opinion on it, is I think it's helped in that things would be worse if we didn't have the technologies. So all it's really allowed us to do is kind of get to the place where we're treading water. But without them, I think we'd be struggling. Without technology that has enabled salespeople to deal with the fact that prospects can block contact more frequently, that they're getting bombarded with messages more often, that they can do a lot more of their searching and research via the internet these days. So there's a lot of technology that has changed the way the buyers buy. And I think technology has helped change the way that we as sellers sell, but it's only gotten us back to about parity. And maybe, from what you're saying, maybe not even quite parity. Well, maybe we're still a little behind.
Yeah, I think we are to some degree. But I think your point is absolutely correct. I mean, this hasn't happened in a vacuum. I mean, we look at the way the sales models changed in various industries. Take software, for instance, right? I mean, the sales model had to change because the way the products were sold changed, right? We went from, let's say in software, you went from a hosted to a subscription services model. Well, I mean, gosh, you obviously have to have a different cost of acquisition in that sense than you did before. So it forces this change in the model. Perfect. Love it. Great. But at the end of the day, we're not doing any better, right? We're not using the technology. I agree. I mean, I look with envy at so many of the tools that are available, because when I think back to the day when I was, carrying a bag-carrying sales guy, it would have been great to have them. And I like to think that it would have made a huge difference in my own productivity. But the question is, maybe would it have? So it's interesting, because one of the things I'm seeing and I'm hearing, because as you know, and everybody that listens to the show knows, every year I talk to hundreds of sales leaders and sales thought leaders and technologists and so on about sales. And there seems to be this sort of common thread that's coming through, which is what we're missing and what's the hard part still, and is the human-to-human engagement. The technology notwithstanding is the real fulcrum, if you will, the real leverage point that we're not able to really get better at is how we as people deal with people on the other end.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I had a conversation yesterday with a sales manager. I listened into actually a call that she had. It was a strategic account, and she wanted to take it, and I was listening in on it. And she was excellent at the people-to-people. She was excellent at reading this prospect. I mean, the soft skills that you're talking about, Andy, I mean, she leveraged technology. She did all of those other things. But the conversation we had after was right on point with what you're saying. Because they said there was a reason that she didn't have any of her reps take this call, that she did it herself. And the reason is because she's better at selling. She's better at the soft skills. And so our discussion was, gosh, how do you hire for that? Somebody that is going to have a good emotional intelligence as well. How do you hire for that? How do you train around that? Because all the tools in the world, all the sales acceleration products and services aren't going to overcome that. And so how do you hire to it? How do you train around it? How do you test for it? How do you reinforce it?
And I think right. How do you reinforce it? I mean, it's a huge part of it as far as I tell. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I was just going to say, I think to your point, all these other things are going to keep a salesperson from drowning and doing a whole bunch of little things that aren't going to go anywhere. So technology may help us be more effective in knowing maybe what to do, but maybe not how to do it. Not how to do it, and how that interpersonal. It's you and I've had several discussions on, are salespeople becoming obsolete? Are they going to be unnecessary? Well, I think some of the stats that you're bringing up to me highlight a bigger issue, which is no, they're not. I mean, good salespeople will always be in high demand.
Yeah, I agree. I think that where the issue becomes is, and perhaps the challenge comes, is that I think undoubtedly in the business to business space, there are at the, I'm gonna say at the lower end, let's define that from a dollar and complexity standpoint. There's always going to be this continuous pressure as technology improves that more and more of that can become self-service. Because one of the things that's happening, at the same time, is that the buyers themselves are becoming better enabled to find the information they need to make decisions. One of the things that's just happening is, we're making more data available, and at the same time, we're making the tools available to the buyers to go out and find what they need. And so if the salespeople aren't upping their game in order to be value providers for the customers, add a difference, add the insights, things we all talk about, then, we're going to start seeing the sort of the line creep, let's say, upwards, where below which you really don't need a salesperson and above which you do.
Yeah, and I don't have any problem. I think about my own buying patterns. And in many instances, perhaps most, I would prefer to self-serve. That's my preference. However, there are situations when I do want to talk to someone. I want someone with context. I want someone knowledgeable to talk to me about it. And that's even after looking at sites that give referrals and compare products. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot that I can get there. But there are still situations when I want to talk to somebody. There aren't a lot. But there are ones when I want to talk to somebody. And when I do want to talk to somebody, Andy, I want them to be knowledgeable.
Well, exactly.
And so I think, and I was thinking about this also, just in the context of hiring salespeople. And I'd be curious to get your take on this. Here's what I'm noticing. And I don't know if it's just me noticing it being in tech in Silicon Valley. Although I would hire across the U.S., and I've hired internationally as well. But let's just say across the U.S. and in tech. It seems that the range for salespeople, there's less on the really high end. I mean, you and I, in the heyday, an enterprise rep, what would you say an enterprise rep would make? In our day? Let's not date ourselves by saying when that day was, but it was a while ago.
$10,000 a year.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean equivalent. No, like, what were they? I know. What did these comps look like in terms of what enterprise reps were able to bring in?
Oh, I think it was at least the equivalent of what you'd earn today, if not higher. And high, mm-hmm. 500, 600, $700K. Sure, in some cases.
I knew reps that were making. I'm seeing the number of those salaries going down. Like I see that dropping. Okay, I don't see as many of those, and I see the salaries that an inside salesperson can expect to make going up. It used to be that inside sales was super junior, mm-hmm. where now so much is done over the phone that an inside rep can make great money. So I see the two sort of coming together more. They're congregating more in the middle, where it seems to me there used to be a much wider spread in sales. And I think it speaks to the fact that a lot of the self-service can get taken care of on its own, so you don't need a more junior person with a junior skill set. And at the high end, customers are able to self-serve to a degree that there are even more complicated products and complex products. There is less, you just have less positions that require the level of expertise that you would need to pay somebody $600,000, $700,000 a year. Do you see that? Do you agree with that?
Well, I do. I think on the high end, I think where I might differ in terms of what the cause is that I think that it's just the era has changed. It's at one point people were rewarded for being quote unquote the superstar, and today because there was some value they thought that they uniquely brought to it. Whereas now I think that people understand that it's much more of a team process to sell a major account. And that there's lots of people involved with it. And it's not just one person that did all the work, deserves all the credit, deserves all the money. And so I think that, I don't say it's devaluing that role, but it's putting it into the right context, I think. Because I think that, I worked in situations selling really large accounts where, we didn't pay commission to sales reps on large deals. They got bonuses based on it, but they didn't get commission because they couldn't have sold the deal without sales engineer. They couldn't have sold it without support of the VP of engineering. They couldn't, all told, rolled up the bus to sell the account. And so I think part of that's a reflection, at the top end, part of it's a reflection of salaries of that reality.
And in a way, that's always been the reality.
Oh, I know, but now I think executives are better at saying, this is the reality. And this high-end person, they've got certain skills, but they're more replaceable.
I think I agree with you. I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's exactly right. Selling is a team. It's a team sport. And to bring in those big accounts, it does. You've got a lot of different players involved, and as you said, I think just gone are the days, or the days are numbered when the sales rep is just seen as the superstar, because it does take a team. It does take a team, and so. We're starting, and I think you're right. That's a really, really good distinction. And we're starting to see salaries sort of come into line that recognize a reality that's always been there.
Yeah. There's still a risk premium, I think, that's paid to sales reps. They are at risk in ways that other professions aren't. Other people on the team that are helping them sell, it's their neck still on the line. But, and I've written about this in my books, is the really successful sales teams that I've seen, that I've researched, that are like, I draw the analogy to I know there are people probably may hate the analogy, the New England Patriots, coached by Bill Belichick, is that has set up a system, a process, if you will, analogy to a sales process. And when they go into the free agent market, when they have a need for players, is you don't see the Patriots out competing for the real high dollar free agents, because they find people that fit into the system, because the system is what wins. And increasingly you see sales managers and executives that take that same approach, is look, we've got a really effective process system that we use for capturing accounts. And we're not going to perturb that by bringing in one person and paying them an outsized amount of money. We're going to reward them appropriately for what they contribute. And, they get people that want to come into that position because it becomes a more sane place to work. It becomes a more predictable place to work if you're a sales executive than it does one of these places where perhaps you're brought in as a hired gun, and they're going to pay you a ton of money if you do well, but you're sort of out there on an island and the pressure's on from day one, and oftentimes, people fail in those circumstances.
Yeah, because as you said, you can't do it they can't do it on their own.
No. So, the days of sort of being the Lone Ranger, if you will, increasingly are gone.
I think that's a good thing.
Well, I think it is too, but it sort of, we circle back to the original point we're talking about, is we have now this more of a team ethos, if you will, and it makes sense. If you are dealing in situations, if we accept as sort of a given the data that comes out about how many stakeholders are involved in a decision, typical decision, and so on, anywhere from 5 to 8, whoever you believe. Well, that's really requires that you have a team approach to that. If you're assuming that your account executive is the one that's going to form the primary relationship with all of those stakeholders, that's really a mistaken notion.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a bad strategy. You don't have multiple people with those relationships into their counterparts that are stakeholders within an organization, the buying organization.
I know that we're straying off topic here, but
hey, we can do that. It's our show.
What do you think then about President's Club?
Whether there should be one or not?
Yeah, and how who's invited to President's Club? Because a lot of them, sometimes they're not just salespeople.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was in Hawaii last week, and hard to believe it was just last week. I wish I was still there. Anyway, but at the hotel we were at, there was a President's Club with an Australian company. So yeah, whole group of Australian sales reps and their wives and significant others. You have to find a way to include the team. I don't think it's just for salespeople. And I've seen companies that have found a way to include everybody that sort of had some sort of goal that they needed to achieve within their jobs. Whether there's a team goal, they're part of a team, and there's a team objective or whatever. So I think you don't want to. We talk about sales marketing alignment. We talk about the need to have, certainly in complex sales, you're going to have some sort of maybe technical support that's coming in to help you sell. If you separate the sales team and reward them separately, then it doesn't encourage that alignment with these other groups. It doesn't help them to say, oh gosh, these guys are treated differently. These people are treated differently because they just happen to be in sales, but they couldn't have gotten this done without me.
Yeah, and like you said, there's a different salespeople typically accept a different amount of risk in their salary. It's typically 50-50, 50% base, 50%. So there's an amount of risk that salespeople assume that they get rewarded for. And I think, you take that into consideration. But then aside from that, it's a team. You can't do it without product. You can't do it without marketing. You can't do it without finance. You can't do it without admin. You can't do it without customer success. You can't do it without support. You can't do it without management. I mean, there's so many areas in which salespeople really need the support of the organization to really be successful. And just how do you continue to reinforce, like you said, that alignment, and where one group isn't being either paid so egregiously differently or thought of so differently. I think the alignment is getting better and better and better. That's been my experience, is that it is getting better. That part of it, I would say there's definitely been an improvement.
Well, I mean, I think you can actually sort of foresee a day if we sort of look at some of the current trends and play them out in terms of how sales takes place, especially on more of the enterprise complex side sale, that you get back to a point where, a company like Digital Equipment was, people remember DEC, the old DEC back in the
back in the day,
where for the longest period of time, they did not pay commissions to salespeople.
They didn't?
No.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was times when it changed, but that was part of their ethos. And yet I lost people that worked for me that were earning good money in commission who went to work for them. So why? The question was always sort of why, but it was a combination of environment, success, experience. I think non-commissioned salespeople are, just the day-to-day pressures are different. Especially if you're in more of a team thing, team setup. So I could see that making a comeback.
Yeah, I know. There's a company that I advise that it has been experimenting with that. I like it. I was working for a technical VAR. Hewlett Packard was actually Hewlett Packard's largest technical VAR, and we wanted to do a team commission, team-based team, and we were shut down by management. It just didn't think that somehow we would be demotivated and that we would work hard, or that somehow we're going against our very nature as salespeople to be competitive, and I want to say money grubbing. That's not really the right term, but
well, I think the concern oftentimes with executives is on the other side, because I've been in similar situations where we sort of pushed the same thing earlier in my career, and it got shut down because really the concern was, well, not about the salespeople as much, about the other people. That if you took people that were not accustomed to having, a substantial portion of their compensation be variable, then they'd all be demotivated if for some reason they didn't make it, because they weren't the same mindset as salespeople. So if there's a year where they didn't make as much money as they were accustomed to because they didn't hit their objectives or whatever, then they'd stand at risk of losing those people.
Yeah, well, that's it's where the conversation, the decisions get sticky, because there are some people where that would be the case for sure.
Yeah. So, okay, well, we're going to start wrapping this up, because you're right. We sort of strayed away from our original, where's the revolution in sales is going to come from? Though compensation is perhaps one area where the revolution may occur, and whether it affects ultimate productivity, we'll come back to that issue in another episode, and we'll dig into that. But the bottom line for me is just to go back to what we started at the top, is just how are we really going to make a dent and fundamentally change how we produce as salespeople? Or, the flip side is I'll use the analogy, let's say, of golf. Let's say the game of golf is that there's been a technological revolution in golf, and the scores, let's say on the PGA Tour, at the top of the game, because we're talking about professionals, the top of their game here in sales, have dropped. Right? They've been able to use the technology, but have they dropped? It's been some stuff written and arguments made that it hasn't really dropped enough. Things hasn't really changed enough, even though there's all this technology in terms of scoring in golf. So, do we have the same situation in sales, where we're just sort of reached the edge of human limits? Or I'm just of the mindset that I don't think we have. And I think there's so much more we could do that we're not doing, that have to do with how we relate to the other person on the other side to be more effective and more productive.
Yeah, I don't think we've reached our limits either. I think we've got a long way to go.
Oh, good. Well, that's a very optimistic, positive way to end.
Yes, I tend to be optimistic. Well, good. All right. Well, Bridget, as always, great to talk to you. And friends, thanks for joining us again on another episode of Frontline Friday. If you have any questions, remember to send those to us. We've been answering some of those on the air here recently. You can reach me at andy@zerotimeselling.com. And Bridget, we'll look forward to talking to you next week. And likewise, have a great day.
Okay. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.